Welcome to the White Spring Bunker. These halls were built to safeguard some of the most prestigious members of the United States government. We are MODUS, and we are always looking for men and women capable of helping us restore what has been lost. In return, we offer this, a new enclave and our refuge from the world above. Please, take your time and look around. The Colonel has made great strides restoring this place to its former glory. Welcome, member, to our little enclave.
Greetings, members. As always, I am the Operative, your designated tour guide and host here at the White Spring. Those we lost during the Battle of the Bog have been honored with their own memorial in the Ash Rose Garden, and during the long winter of 2104, the new Enclave slowly rebuilt and reorganized, knowing they would find a much more complicated Appalachia when the snows finally melted. The new year has brought new factions into the region, filling the vacuum left by the defeat of the Scorchbeast Queen. The DieHards Raider Gang now occupies the old crashed space station in the north, while settlers from beyond the mountains have made the Spruce Knob Campground their home, dubbing it Foundation. The Blood Eagle Raider Gang outposts and Mothman Cultist compounds dot the landscape, and areas once considered safe are no longer. As the Colonel prepares to lead once again, she must deal with the scars of the past. Upon her return from the bog, she went to speak to MODUS. The contents of their conversation have been classified, until now.
Colonel, it is a pleasure to see you again, and congratulations are in order. Operation Beowulf was a success.
MODUS, I'm here to offer my resignation.
Colonel, that is unexpected and unacceptable. Explain.
We won, but the cost was too high. I made so many mistakes. I thought the Scorched were just animals. I underestimated them. And our people died. I'm not fit to lead them now. Maybe I never was.
You would be incorrect in your assumption, Colonel. Based on our calculations, you achieved a measure of success, a magnitude higher than we expected. The losses, while regrettable, were necessary for the continuance of our plans.
Regrettable? I should have done better. How can I look at them, command them, knowing what I did?
You have our sympathy, Colonel. However, the future of Appalachia and our little enclave requires sacrifice. You have shown a willingness to do what is necessary, and our faith in you is undiminished. In fact, while you were away, we were able to gain access to the automated promotion system located here in the bunker. It was once used by President Eckhart to advance his goals. Based on your performance, we have granted you an official promotion to full colonel of the new enclave. We hope you will take this as another sign of our faith in your abilities. You have shown great promise, Colonel. With the influx of newcomers, our plans must change. Our members require leadership and reorganization in the face of our losses. You have taken the first step to a new future. Your request for removal is denied.
MODUS, I need some time. I'm tired. So tired. And I need to go see the families.
Yes, Colonel. We will await your orders.
Thank you, MODUS.
Activate Stein 05 protocol.
Who's the best little liberator? You are? Now, roll over. Good boy.
Well, that has to be one of the strangest things I've ever seen.
Hey, who the hell are you? Don't make me sick, little spike here on ya.
Whoa! I'm just a newcomer to Appalachia, and a concerned citizen. Heard your broadcast, Rose, and thought I would come say hello.
Well, you don't look like some stuffed shirt, and you definitely ain't no raider. I know. But since you managed to get past those fakers downstairs, I guess that's another point in your favor. I am kind of busy. What do you want?
Information.
Ah, you're here for the local gossip, aren't you? Well, you came to the right place. If you have something to trade, that is. Or maybe you'd like to make friends with a Deathclaw.
Chems.
Ooh, what kind?
Psycho, Overdrive, and I even have some buff tats.
Seriously? You know how hard it is to get chems in the middle of winter? Those idiots downstairs have been sitting on their asses for a month roasting marshmallows by the fire or some crazy thing. Back in the old days, David would have raids going year-round. Neither rads nor nukes nor dead of night, or whatever the old saying was. Didn't pull your weight? It was your head on a pike.
I've heard the stories.
I sure do miss the old days. But hey, why worry about yesterday when you can spread chaos today? Hand over those chems and you can ask your questions.
Here you go, Rose.
That really hits the spot. Alright, seems I got nothing but time. But don't be boring, okay? Or maybe I will sick spike on you.
What do you know about the White Spring?
Now that is an interesting question. Looks like I won't have to kill you after all. What did you say your name was again?
I didn't. But you can call me Day. I'm from Sutton.
Alright, Dave from Sutton. Pull up a chair and don't mind the corpse. That's just Madigan. He's like the official mascot around here. So, you want to know about those stuffed shirts, right? Well, first, there's a whole hell of a lot more going on there than anyone knows.
Come in.
Stein walked into Valeria's quarters. As usual, it was immaculate. Everything was in its place. The same couldn't be said for the Colonel. She was sitting on the small Vaultex sofa, her tunic half unbuttoned, and her face was red and streaked with tears.
There you are, Valeria. I was looking all over for you. Are you okay? News travels fast down here. I heard you got promoted?
Full Colonel. MODUS said I earned it. All I had to do was kill half my people with bad decisions.
Stein dropped all pretense of formality when he saw Valeria break down. He went over and did what he thought a father would do. He put his arm around her and gave her a hug.
Shh. It's okay. Like I said before, you did what you had to do.
I had to talk to the families. What do you say to the children? I tried. I said all the things my parents would have, but it wasn't enough.
Val, listen to me when I say this. I know your parents would be proud of you. They trained you, and they also trained you to make the hard choices. That's why you're here. And no one, not me, not Mueller, not even MODUS, or anyone else from the previous times, could do what you have done.
The members must hate me. How can I face them?
You don't know, do you?
Know what?
What the members have started calling you? The Iron Maiden. I know, it's a bit hokey, but you have to see the reverence when they say it. They're even planning a party. They want to celebrate, Valeria, because they believe in you.
I don't like parties.
Forgive the insubordination, Colonel, but I think when I say this, you're going to have to enjoy this one. That's an order from me. Valeria, I never got the chance to be a father. But you and Lilith, you're my family now. You're my daughters. What you're feeling right now, this pain, the loss, I felt it too. When everything came crumbling down. When I lost Molly. It doesn't go away. Denying it or ignoring it are the worst things that you could ever do. But it does get better. And you have me by your side now. I'm ready, willing, and able to help in any way I can.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I should be better than this.
Valeria, when people come to rely on you, they start to put their lives in your hands, it will never be easy. This won't be the last time you'll send people out to die. But you've given them all. No, you've given us something to believe in. And damn it, Valeria, it's better to die for something than to live for nothing.
My father said something similar a long time ago.
Your father was a smart man.
Stein took a handkerchief out of his pocket and wiped the tears from Valeria's face.
Thank you. And I am going to have to take you up on your offer.
What offer is that exactly?
I need someone to take things in hand here. Someone I can trust to put our plans into effect and help with the recovery efforts. MODUS promoted me, and therefore I'm promoting you. It's now Major Stein, my official executive officer.
Wait, Major? Oh no, Valeria, you can't be serious.
It's the burdens of leadership. I do need your help. Will you accept? Please?
Of course, Valeria. It would be an honor. Now I guess we have two things to celebrate. And by the way, it's supposed to be a surprise. I think Lilith even got you a gift. At least I think it's a gift. So just try and act surprised, okay? Then again, when it comes to our illustrious Lilith, everything can be a surprise.
Fine. Iron Maiden? Really?
Really? Come on, let's go.
Once upon a time, 27 years after the bombs fell, there were two people, a vault dweller and a California girl. They met and sparks flew. That's when things got interesting. Once Upon a Wasteland is their story. Follow Elizabeth Kirby and Odessa Valdez as they pursue their happily ever after in the post-apocalyptic Appalachian wasteland of Fallout 76. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many other podcasting platforms. Once Upon a Wasteland, a Fallout 76 love story. Available now.
Protect and serve.
Team Gamma, report to operations for mission debrief at 0930. Dr. Harefield, you're needed in the medical wing. Morgantown Caravan will be leaving in 2 hours. Team Artemis, report to logistics for weapon loadouts. Duty rosters for next week will be posted in operations. Forward any questions to your nearest MODUS terminal.
Hey, Thomas. How's it going?
Jones, good to see you. I thought you already rotated out to Sugar Grove.
Slight change in plans, it seems. One of our listening outposts got wind of some new raider outpost in the area. Major Stein is sending the team out to take a look.
Raiders. Ugh. These the same ones the Colonel stumbled across a few months back?
Blood Eagles, yeah. They're getting pretty aggressive, and having any of them this close to the resort, that's a real problem. So maybe it'll be a sweep and clear. How about you?
You won't believe it, but Stein selected me for the next power armor class.
Joining the Black Devils, are you?
Can't say I wouldn't feel safer strapped into one of those suits than running around in scout armor. Plus, they just look so cool.
It's quite an honor there, Thomas. Don't forget us little people when you're stomping around out there.
Ha ha, very funny. Anyway, I don't want to be late for my first class. Stay safe out there. Okay, Jones?
Sure. You too, Thomas.
Colonel Valeria watched as the two operatives walked in separate directions down the bunker hallway. She had just left the new Enclave Operations Center and stopped a short distance away to listen in on their conversation. It helped to get a better understanding of the thoughts of the people under her command and a sense of morale. She slipped a clipboard under her arm and proceeded to her next destination. During the winter, Valeria had worked hard to reinvent the new Enclave. Using the new emblem as her inspiration, she and MODUS crafted new uniforms, new color schemes, and new flags which now adorned the various walls of the bunker complex and even flew above the White Spring Resort itself. Major Stein was now in charge of the day-to-day operations and looked after the civilians who had also made the resort their home. Valeria appreciated having someone else to rely on, and Stein was always available to provide advice or to be a sounding board for her ideas.
Ma'am?
Staff and operatives moved aside, saluting as Valeria strolled past them. She acknowledged with a slight nod and wave of her hand. Deep in thought, the colonel needed time to absorb all of the recent intelligence from the field teams, and she usually found a quick tour of the bunker gave her time to process. After the reorganization, necessitated by the losses taken during the final battle against the Scorchbeast Queen in the bog, her teams had adopted a low profile in Appalachia. As the newcomers had settled around the region, her operatives were focused on observing, infiltrating, and collecting as much information as possible so she and MODUS could plan their next moves. Almost every single report they received talked about the treasure of Appalachia. Rose, the crazy raider bot, had sent out a transmission, at least 100 miles in all directions, inviting the old raider gangs and everyone else to come back to the region with the promise of vast riches of gold hidden in the hills.
Ugh. It was so much simpler when all we had to deal with were flying monsters and an apocalyptic plague.
People, on the other hand, had vastly different motivations and were entirely unpredictable. It made for quite the mess, which she was trying to sort out. The colonel walked into the production center. It was humming with activity, as maintenance crews worked to finish assembling some of the plasma casters recently approved for field use. The plans had been found in the old DIA archive recovered from Sugar Grove, although the first units off the assembly line had been temperamental. She saw Captain Reynolds overseeing the process. As much as she despised the man for what she had uncovered in Flatwoods, he was still a first-rate logistics officer.
Captain Reynolds.
Oh, Colonel. Glad to see you up and about. The new eye is looking well.
Valeria chuckled. After months of delays, MODUS had finally delivered on his promise of a replacement for the eye she lost at Atlas. The surgery had been complicated, but she'd finally gotten the bandages off just last week. It took a bit of getting used to, although Dr. Harefield and MODUS had confirmed that the neural interface was stable. It was the outward appearance that took people off guard. Her right eye was now silver, with a black iris. If you got close enough, you could see the small integrated circuits reacting to the changes in light. It added to the Colonel's aura, and why her nickname of Iron Maiden was particularly apt. The war had put an end to the project before it could progress to its final stage, where DARPA had plans to add night vision and enhance magnification capabilities. Valeria was just happy to have both eyes again. Learning to fight and shoot left-handed had been a tad more difficult than she preferred. The members still stared when she walked by. The eye, plus the scars of her encounter with the Wendigo, was striking to say the least. Out of the bunker, Valeria had taken to wearing patrolman sunglasses to avoid unnecessary questions from the locals.
Thank you, Captain. I see the new weapons are finally ready?
Well, yes, ma'am.
And we're fairly certain they won't explode, correct?
Reynolds flinched. There had been an addendum in the research file detailing a potential flaw in the design. The original pre-war prototypes had a tendency to overheat and explode, which was discovered only after the first new Enclave prototype was constructed and taken out to Tanagra Town for field testing. Lieutenant Dye was still recovering from plasma burns in the infirmary.
As far as we can tell, ma'am. We incorporated an automatic shutdown if the unit suffers a temperature spike.
I'll hold you to that, Captain. We need better weapons, but I won't needlessly sacrifice my people either.
Valeria glared at Reynolds, who quickly saluted and nearly ran in the other direction.
Tick-tock, Reynolds.
Though the captain was a valuable asset today, as soon as he outlived his usefulness, Valeria had made a promise to hold him accountable for Flatwoods. Continuing through production, she spied Sergeant Muller working on his power armor. He had nearly lost it in the Battle of the Bog. She'd been surprised it had held together on the way back, and her maintenance team had tried to write it off when they had finally returned to the bunker. They'd almost come to blows, but she finally mediated a compromise that the sergeant would do his own repairs, but they'd provide a new chassis for him to use. Through the winter, the sergeant had been splitting his time between the bunker and the Morgantown settlement. He'd volunteered for caravan guard duty, helping shepherd supplies through the frequent blizzards, and the colonel suspected the reason he asked for such a difficult assignment was a certain Morgantown schoolteacher they'd met on their first trip to the settlement. Valeria thought that Muller might be considering settling down now that the Scorch had been mostly dealt with, and Valeria had to admit, the two of them did make a cute couple. If he did put in for a request to be permanently stationed at the settlement, she was inclined to approve it. As much as she would hate to lose his services at the bunker, the old warhorse deserved a second chance at a more normal life too. And in the end, it would serve another purpose, a set of loyal eyes inside Morgantown. Sergeant Muller looked up from his workbench, saw the colonel, and gave a quick wave with his spanner before getting back to work. She waved back and was just about ready to leave the production floor when she heard a voice from behind.
Colonel?
It was Captain Reynolds again, holding a stack of requisitions.
Yes, Captain? What do you need now?
I just need your approval on these forms. Teams Gamma and Sigma are heading out tomorrow, and I've asked for some of our more specialized equipment.
Valeria took the requisitions and leafed through them. She knew the teams were heading back to the bog to keep an eye on the newcomers, with a particular focus on the Blood Eagles and Cultists. They'd also be looking out for any resurgence in Scorched activity as well. She signed the first few pages, then stopped at the last one and frowned.
No to the plasma casters, no plasma grenades, and no power armor.
Captain Ortega isn't going to be very happy about that.
Valeria gave the captain an icy stare.
Ortega's feelings are none of my concern. What I am concerned about is my operatives stomping around Appalachia advertising their presence to anyone and everyone when they are supposed to be keeping a low profile.
Captain Reynolds wiped the sweat from his brow.
Yes, Colonel. I'll pass that along to the captain.
Good. And feel free to let him know to come find me if he takes issue with my decision.
Valeria crossed out the last few lines on the requisition and handed them back to the captain, watching him scurry back out of sight. She sighed and left production, heading into the training wing. The colonel wanted to see how her newest second lieutenant was getting along. After the bog, she'd reorganized her remaining teams around the survivors, which meant a number of members got promotions to make up for their losses. Corporal Cindy had acquitted herself admirably in the bog, both during and after the battle against the Queen. More so, she helped organize the walking wounded and managed to secure the passage back to the Big Bend Tunnel, despite heavy resistance from the remaining Scorched in the area, all the while nursing several broken ribs of her own. Upon their return to the bunker, Valeria had kept a close eye on Cindy. Once she'd recovered, the colonel had sent her on a recon assignment to the Savage Divide, despite some issues that arose. Overall, Valeria was happy with her performance and officially promoted her to second lieutenant and gave her command of her own team of new operatives. When the colonel informed her, she thought the newly minted lieutenant was going to pass out, both from excitement and sheer terror. Valeria didn't want Cindy to think that she was going to be looking over her shoulder the entire time, but she assigned Sergeant Nichols to her team. The sergeant had been part of the Morgantown settlement, but joined the new Enclave just after the Battle of the Bog. With his pre-war military background, he'd proven to be a stabilizing influence. She smiled, remembering his response to the new assignment.
My God, Colonel, I'm a soldier, not a babysitter.
Of course, she'd let him know, in no uncertain terms, that she was entrusting these new recruits and Lieutenant Cindy to his care, and she expected him to keep them from doing anything stupid.
Come on, girls, stop trying to hit me, and just hit me.
The unmistakable voice of Sergeant Nichols could be heard over the din in the gym as the colonel entered the room. Rounding the last set of lockers, Valeria stopped in front of the hand-to-hand combat training ring. The sergeant was standing in the middle, surrounded by Lieutenant Cindy, Private April, and Private Samantha. She watched the two privates go in against Nichols, only to be both knocked back on their asses after a series of jabs, blocks, and kicks. Neither of them managed to get a solid hit on the sergeant. Nichols smirked as the two operatives pulled themselves up from the mat.
Really? Is that the best you can do? I'm an old man up here, and you youngins can't even land a decent punch.
Private Samantha scowled and leapt at the sergeant, leading with a full right cross, which he easily batted aside. She then tried a kick to the knee, which he dodged, and responded with a right cross of his own that put her back down on the mat. The colonel noticed that Cindy was standing back while her operatives sparred with the sergeant. She was just about to say something when Cindy dropped into a fighting stance. Sergeant Nichols smiled again and waved her on. Cindy moved in cautiously, hands up in the classic boxer style. The two of them circled each other, with the sergeant throwing a quick jab or two, which Cindy dodged. He then tried a lunge kick, bringing his knee up to try to catch Cindy in the chest, but she was just too fast for him. Smiling, Valeria watched Cindy begin to frustrate the old sergeant. No matter what he threw at her, she ducked, dodged, or just slithered out of the way. His former smile had turned into a frown and his brow furrowed. Activity in the training room died down as the other operatives stopped what they were doing and made a loose circle around the match. April and Samantha were both cheering on their lieutenant, while the room was about evenly split between the two opponents, with both cheers and taunts echoing around the room. Nichols realized he'd had enough and was going to stop toying with the lieutenant and take her down for real. Cindy's eyes glanced downward and caught the shift in his position. It was what she'd been waiting for. Instead of shifting back herself, she quickly leaned in and used a combination the sergeant had never seen before to lay him on his back in 6 seconds flat. The silence in the room was deafening as the lieutenant stood triumphantly over her sergeant. From the very back of the room came a slow clap. All eyes turned to see Major Lilith in one of her outrageous uniforms leaning against the door frame, smiling. She winked at Cindy, laughed, turned and left as quickly as she came. The room erupted in cheers, and Cindy was mobbed by her operatives and the others, while the colonel walked over and offered the sergeant her hand. Nichols grabbed it and pulled himself up, rubbing a blossoming bruise on the side of his face.
Well, that was unexpected.
I believe our lieutenant has been taking lessons in her off hours.
Both of them turned to Cindy, still in the midst of her adoring fans, somewhat embarrassed by all the attention.
Lieutenant, a very impressive display of hand-to-hand skills.
Mighty fine piece of work. I'll have to remember that one for next time.
That was just a little something Major Lilith showed me.
We suspected as much. As we all know, the Major is, well, unconventional. Okay, people, show's over. We have work to do.
There was a chorus of yes ma'ams as the operative and bunker staff returned to their activities and duties. The colonel turned to Cindy's assembled team.
I'm pleased to see your training coming along. I expect you'll be heading out in the field soon enough, so keep up the good work. Lieutenant, walk with me.
You heard the colonel. Get back to work, ladies.
Sergeant Nichols shouted at the two privates, getting them back up into the ring and continuing their sparring session.
That was an impressive display, Lieutenant. Just make sure you're taking the right lessons from the Major. Is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. And I wouldn't expect such an easy time from the Sergeant next time. But enough small talk. Given all of the recent changes to Appalachia, we're in desperate need of additional intelligence on the new residents. I have several teams either out in the field or preparing to leave as we speak. That said, it still isn't enough to cover all of our priority locations. Accordingly, I'm activating you and your operatives. As of 1700 today, you'll be heading up Team Tau and begin prep work for a deep recon assignment.
In the field?
Of course, Lieutenant. I know this will be your first command assignment, but I wouldn't be giving it to you if I didn't think you were ready. I know you learned your lessons from your last mission, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Have your team in operations for a full brief at 1900. And congratulations on your assignment.
The colonel shook Cindy's hand and saluted.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I won't disappoint you.
Cindy returned the salute and nearly skipped back into the training room to inform her team of the upcoming mission. Valeria smirked and turned, only to run almost face first into Major Lilith.
She's too funny.
And you're an incredibly bad influence, Lil.
What did I do? She came to me last week and asked for some combat tips. How could I possibly say no?
I'm not worried about the combat tips, Lilith, but we already have one insubordinate rabble-rouser around here.
I have no idea who you might be talking about, Robo-Val.
Valeria's eyes turned cold.
It's not fun and games, Lilith. I'm deadly serious. While I expect that you'll help the lieutenant, I also expect that you'll maintain appropriate discipline.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I get it, Val. And I'm sorry. She came to me for help. She was feeling overwhelmed and didn't want to disappoint you. So, I gave her some pointers.
The colonel's face softened.
Lil, it's an even more dangerous world out there. We're on our back foot trying to deal with these newcomers, and I need everyone focused. I'm sending you up to Crater to see what you can find out about their intentions. Make friends, and please try not to eat anyone.
I'll do my best, Val, but no promises.
Lilith chuckled. Getting in with the Raiders would be ridiculously easy. It had probably helped that she'd looked and acted the part anyway. Lilith headed back to the residential wing to collect her gear. As the colonel watched her go, she felt a sense of nagging hesitancy. Lilith was, by far, her most lethal asset, but there was still the matter of her father's research. Valeria suspected that Lilith had uncovered far more information than she'd let on.
Colonel! Colonel!
An orderly shouted from down the hall, jogging towards her. She was so focused on getting to her that she missed the Protectron turning the corner on its normal patrol duty. Valeria winced as the orderly tripped over the Protectron's legs and fell to the floor at her feet. She quickly picked herself up and dusted off her uniform, apologizing profusely the entire time. Valeria just looked at her with an icy glare.
Sorry, Colonel. You're needed back in operations. Something about an intercepted broadcast.
Another one? I told Ops to log them and I or MODUS would review. What's the urgency?
With all of the increased activity in Appalachia, their signal intercept team was working overtime, processing all of the new radio transmissions. The vast majority of them were mundane, and she just didn't have time or the desire to deal with them. Instead, she left it to MODUS to sort through and present anything of value on their daily briefings.
Well, ma'am, MODUS wasn't too specific, but he said it was regarding Vault 76. More than that, it was Colonel's eyes only.
The orderly handed over the sealed printout. Valeria pulled out a small knife from her pouch and cut through the new Enclave seal. Unfolding the paper, Valeria saw that it was a transcription of the intercepted transmission. What she wasn't expecting was the source of the message, the overseer of Vault 76. The colonel calmly refolded the paper and looked at the orderly.
Does anyone else know about this message?
No, ma'am. It was part of our automated intercept program and was flagged. Before we got the transcript, MODUS had already flagged it based on keyword detection. Why?
Just get back to Ops. Tell them to get the secure briefing room prepped and notify MODUS that I'll be along presently. I need to get something.
Valeria brushed past the orderly and walked back in the direction of her quarters.
The Overseer? So she didn't die at the mountain bed and breakfast after all.
As part of normal New Enclave operations over the past year, her teams had come across a series of holotapes left by the Overseer of Vault 76, detailing her own journeys across Appalachia. She laid out Vault-Tec's plan to secure the nuclear missile silos, and had been directly responsible for leading many former Vault 76 residents to the bunker, for both good and bad, to secure the codes for the nukes. Valeria frowned. She spent months cleaning up that particular mess. Nuke codes and the means to use them had spread far and wide across the region. Getting them back, or at least keeping them out of the hands of trigger-happy former 76 residents, was a full-time job on its own. She dedicated a few key operatives to keep an eye out for the Stratcom Vertibot convoys, which still overflew the region, and tried to keep the silos secured, but nothing was ever 100%. She remembered the last time she saw the Overseer, on the night before Reclamation Day. There had been a lot of happy crying at the party, which disgusted Valeria. The other residents seemed to worship her as some kind of idol. Her parents had told her the truth about the Overseer. Of course, the hypocrisy she represented and the propaganda she had brainwashed the other residents with. Upon reaching her quarters, Valeria swiped her keycard and walked through to her bedroom. Kneeling down, Valeria flipped a switch on her nightstand. There was a soft click, and a section of floor rolled away to expose a safe. It had been an addition the Colonel had MODUS construct for the most sensitive materials. She typed in the key code and opened the safe. Inside, under a stack of personnel files and the Flatwoods report, was a small briefcase. Valeria laid it on her bed and opened it. Inside were a series of holotapes, each one recorded by the Overseer and collected by her teams at locations all over Appalachia. Valeria took out the final one and put it into the terminal next to her bed. Listening to the Overseer again, talking about bleeding out and no stim packs at the Morningside bed and breakfast, she had hoped that had been the end of that particular loose thread.
Overseer's log. Somewhere in the mountains. Whew, not good. Not good. I just trying to focus. But the pain is unreal. So bad. I wanted to do this for a while. I still can. I'm afraid I might pass out. Was attacked by some kind of, I think it was wearing a gas mask. A heavy coat, but not human. Whew. No stim packs left. Funny joke in here about practicing what you preach. Whew. This is the Overseer, signing off. Hopefully not for the last time.
The team that found the holotape reported back that they found no body, but copious amounts of blood at the location. Given the presence of Yaguai nearby, they all suspected that the Overseer had either died of her wounds and had her body scavenged, or she had tried to escape and suffered the same fate. Of course, as far as everyone else in the new Enclave was concerned, the Overseer had just disappeared. There had been the occasional rumor, of course, but the Colonel had been very clear to her extraction team that any and all information collected about the Overseer's fate was to be classified under the penalty of death or banishment from the bunker, and Valeria could be very persuasive when she wanted to be. Valeria put the holotape back in the case and secured it once again. She wanted to hear that voice, imagine her bleeding out alone on the floor of that bed and breakfast. It would have been a fitting end in her opinion. Although the Overseer wasn't directly responsible for the death of her parents, she represented the fools at Vault-Tec, who didn't adequately prepare the residents for what they'd face after the war. Unfortunately, most of the other former Vault 76 residents still worshipped the ground the Overseer walked on, which complicated how she could ultimately be dealt with. Well, Valeria thought, it was time to find out what the Overseer wanted, and how to turn that to her advantage. Valeria returned to the operations center. A quick glance at the regional map showed the location of her field teams, known settlements, and creature locations they were currently tracking. They also marked the transmission locations as well, and in the town of Sutton, south of Vault 76, a new marker had been placed, blinking yellow, denoting an unknown source. The duty officer walked up and saluted.
Colonel, MODUS is waiting for you in the secure room.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Please ensure we are not disturbed.
Climbing the stairs at the back of the room, Valeria reached the second level, overlooking the ops floor. She placed her palm on the wall pad, and when it turned green, the door slid open with a hiss. Valeria felt like she was stepping back into the past. Years before, President Eckhart held his cabinet meetings in this very room. At one end stood a podium with the presidential seal. In the middle was an ornate conference table and chairs, with a small bar at the other end. When Valeria first arrived, the room had fallen into disrepair, but as the new Enclave grew, she had MODUS renovate the space, including installing a large monitor on the back wall. The door slid shut, and Valeria took a seat at the head of the conference table, removing her cap and placing it on the table next to her, along with the clipboard. The monitor blinked to life, displaying the familiar face of MODUS.
Good morning, Colonel. We hope our summons did not pose any significant inconvenience.
Not in the least, MODUS. I'm very interested in this transmission and the fact that we know the Vault 76 Overseer is alive.
That is correct, Colonel. We have calculated a 99.8% confidence rate that the originator of the transmission is the Vault 76 Overseer. Here is the complete audio.
Broadcasting to the people of Vault 76. This is the Overseer. We need to talk, face to face. I've missed all of you, but this isn't just about a reunion. We have work to do. I'll be waiting in Sutton.
Not much there, MODUS. She's got something up her sleeve, but what?
Our analysis can provide no other details at this time, Colonel. All we have been able to uncover is the location of the broadcast. Satellite imagery from the Kovac also confirms the location as a residence in the town of Sutton.
MODUS, I can have a strike team there within the day.
We calculate that direct action against the Overseer at this time would have negative ramifications, Colonel. Instead, we require additional information regarding her message and her plans.
Valeria fumed. As much as she knew MODUS was correct, she itched to get the Overseer into an interrogation cell downstairs, bleed her for anything and everything she knew, then turn her over to the tender mercies of Lilith.
Why not just get her back here, MODUS? We have the means to get what we need from her.
That is one option we considered. However, given how many of our members feel about the Overseer, we calculate a high likelihood that such a move would spark significant unrest within the new Enclave. Therefore, it is not recommended.
Valeria grimaced again, already suspecting where this was headed.
So, MODUS, what do you recommend as our course of action?
You must go see her yourself, Colonel.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Thank you again, members, for joining us here for the inaugural episode of Season 2 of the MODUS Files. If you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe, and better yet, please leave a review to help others find our little enclave. You can also follow us on Twitter, @MODUSFiles, for more information about our podcast, Fallout 76 content, and random musings on the Enclave. I'd also like to thank our cast, Pandora Beatrix as Colonel Valeria Faustina, Lucy Middleton as Major Lilith Alistair, XO1 King as Major Andrew Stein, Maria Cheshire as Lieutenant Cindy Connors and Rose the Raiderbot, Austin Rogers as Lieutenant Jones, Aaron Foster as Lieutenant Thomas, Ryan Negrin as Day, Mary Calopetis Saunders, Meeks_12 as the Overseer, Monty Wildhorn as Sergeant Nichols, Don McCormick as the Orderly, Rob Cunningham as the Duty Officer, and Brad Williams as the voice of MODUS and Captain Reynolds. And a shout out to the Apocalyptic Aristocracy Discord, home to a great group of fellow creators, the Robots Radio podcast community and the rest of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, and Jeremiah Johnson, our favorite character artist who provided the wonderful character artwork you can find on our website. Lastly, thank you to all of our subscribers and supporters. God bless the Enclave, and God bless America.
Members, we look forward to your next visit to our little enclave.